This is The Mango Tree, or La Mata de Mango, by Edel Rodriguez. Edel Rodriguez is someone who um, I've really gotten into. He's an artist. He's done a lot of work for uh, magazines like Time Magazine, Der Spiegel. Um, Very intelligent guy. When I've seen him speak, I got this at a book signing he did in Books and Books here in Coral Gables, and I thought that it's always an interesting experience seeing him talk. So, and if you're not familiar with the name, or it sounds familiar, this is the book that he came out with last year, Worm, which is based on his experiences of growing up in communist Cuba during Castro times, and then eventually his and his family's leaving Cuba via the Mariel boat lift in 1980 and arriving in America, and then his life in 80. And also there's touches of themes of like fascism in the 1960s Cuba with the rise of fascism in America today. So this is a really solid work. I've recommended it a million times. It's getting a lot of awards. It's being translated into French. The French are recognizing it for the work it is. So he's someone that you should be watching and reading their books. But this is a children's book, and he this told the story of what the book means, and I'm going to do the same only because this is really for children. This is not for adults, so if I spoil it for the adults, it doesn't matter because, and I said this before, that children, this is that whole trope about you telling a kid a story, and then if you change the story, that they tell you changed it. I really believe that kids like the familiarity and the consistency in a story. There's a certain comfort level with that. This is why you can read stories to kids over and over and over again. I mean, I have three, and I can tell you, they like a certain book, that's what they want to read. They just like that routine. I think is comforting for them, especially when they're very young. So let's just start with the book. Lovely book. This is without the dust jacket here. This scene is in the book itself. Lovely book, well made. And it starts off, zooming towards an island, and you have all this tropical fish and all these vibrant colors, which you find in the Caribbean or in the tropics, no matter what part of the world it is. It doesn't have to be the Caribbean, but I use the Caribbean as a reference because I've been to the Caribbean. I live in Miami, so I'm more familiar with that. So they're zooming in, and then as you're zooming into the land, you see all these brightly colored birds and all this brightly colored plant life. And this is very common in that part of that tropic zone, those anywhere, like I said, all over the world, where you see these bright colors. And then they zoom in on these two children playing in the mango tree. Now, Edel Rodriguez indicated that this is him and this is his friend Osledi. They were childhood best friends in Cuba growing up. And the reason why he's red is that he said when he was a kid that no matter how much sun he got, he always turned a shade of red. He never got darker, didn't get burned. He just turned a shade of red. And no matter how much sun his friend got, he was always fair-skinned and blonde. And then he told this story that the publisher actually wanted him to change his skin tone because they thought that maybe indigenous peoples would find it offensive. And he's like, no, I'm not changing it because that's the way I looked like when I was a kid. That's accurate. So he pushed back and they left it that way. So two friends are here in a mango tree, eating mangoes, drinking mango shapes, which are known as batidos. Kite flying is something that's very popular. At least then it was very popular in Cuba as a pastime. And the reason why there's pigeons is that it's still popular to this day. If you're out in the countryside, people to raise pigeons. And so those are their pets. And he said that once in a while there would be wild boars or wild dogs. And so they could go into the mango tree, for safety. And here they are, and they're like clowning on these wild dogs and boars where they're like actually trying to attack them or not. Or a wild bull, let's say. That is common in the countryside. And if they wanted to sleep, they could actually sleep in the tree. It was safe, a sanctuary for them. So they're sleeping, but then this boy is awakened by this coming rainstorm. And this rainstorm is coming and it's starting to blow all the mangoes off, and the birds are flying away for safety. And storm just approaches, and it could maybe be a hurricane, it could be a tropical storm, or in the tropics. Just so you know, I've seen this happen in Miami and South Florida. You can just have a storm come out of nowhere, lots of rain, lots of wind, big gusts, and then 45 minutes later it's over and everything's nice and sunny and calm again. So this is something that's very indicative of that part of the world. And so eventually the winds and the waves and the storm is so bad that it lifts the tree with the boy and this planter, and he's out to sea. And after the storm, he's here and he's seeing all this different fish life. And Edel also said this is indicative of when he was on the boat leaving Mariel going to the United States, that he saw a fish, he saw a flying fish. He said he saw flying fish. He never knew flying fish existed. And so it's this thing of like, you're seeing different types of fish because you're going to a different place. Eventually the waves take the boy and the tree to a different land. And you can tell it's different because it's in silhouette, but you can see the shapes. These kind of look almost like pine trees, but they're a different shape than what you saw in earlier in the book. And so he arrives in this different land. It's like a different type of sand. You have different shaped trees. You have cactus. And he mentioned cactus only because he said that when he came to America, he saw cactus. He never heard of cactus before and never knew what it was. That was new to him. And then he meets the people that are natives of this land. These are the blue people. And so he doesn't really have much to offer. He doesn't want to communicate. He's got one pigeon that stayed with him, so he offers them a mango. And the mango is planted, and then it becomes this beautiful big mango tree. And more importantly, they're starting to eat the mango, and the mango just becomes another tree that becomes indigenous now to this new land. It becomes assimilated and it becomes part. But here the boy is sending off a pigeon with a mango. And as everybody's here celebrating, they're waving goodbye to the pigeon flies off. And at the end, the pigeon arrives with a mango to his friend to let him know that he's okay. And this book is really about the immigrant experience. And you're here, you have this life, you have your friends, you have everything going on. Then all of a sudden there's some event that you cannot control, that you're not aware about, that suddenly, for various reasons, rips you from your land and you have to leave. And you have to come to a new land and you have to assimilate to them, but at the same time, they take some of what you bring and assimilate it into their own culture. But you also don't forget where you came from. This is a picture of Edel and Sletty in their tree house in this mango tree that they had. And as I said, it's a beautiful book. It's a great children's book. And this is something that instead of reading to the kids, since it's wordless, which I admire as for cartoonists, I always admire anyone that can do a wordless comic or wordless book. This is something that you could read with your kids and you can point out certain things and explain. The colors are very bright and attractive. And there's all these colors that are here, but it all works really well. It's just, I asked him about how he does this approach to color, and he just basically said, I do what I think is what I like and what I think fits. But there's just this really nice use of colors and this mastery where all these colors and they work well together. I really love the art that is in this book. So I thought I'd show this for you. Maybe you know someone who has a child that's looking for a children's book. This is more of a picture book. It doesn't have to necessarily be a comic. Or maybe you have a young child, or you know someone who's an immigrant, or you're an immigrant, and kind of telling that immigrant story and maybe making them feel that they're not the only ones that are going through all that. Anyway, that's this book. It's a lovely book, and I hope you have a chance when you go to the bookstore, see it, pick it up, and look through it. Thanks.